Welcome to Baldy's Basics in Education and Learning. That's us.
All right, that's Jacob's intro. You know mine. What's good, Modern Retro Show fam?
Everyone loves that fam.
They love that fam? Well, they're my fam. What can I say?
Yeah.
So today we're back. We're doing salmonella. Love salmonella. We're doing, this one should be interesting. Daniel Dancer, history's biggest cheapskate. Who do you think is the biggest cheapskate in history?
Mr. Krabs. Hello, my name is Mr. Krabs, and I love money.
SpongeBob reference. I would have gone with like Ebenezer Scrooge. Mm-hmm. Scrooge was known for being a penny pincher. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's get into this. I'm very interested because I've never heard of Daniel Dancer, so this should be fun. Again, don't forget to support the original creators, of course. Salmonella creating that fire, man. Love Salmonella. So please support his channel. Original link is in the description. Nope. Didn't plug in our headphones. There we go.
Hey kids. You're probably familiar with at least a few characters whose obsessive penny pinching truly knows no bounds. Yes, from Ebenezer Scrooge to Scrooge McDuck, nobody hoards money quite like misers. But these guys aren't the most miserly misers out there, not by a long shot. First of all, look at their top hats, their extravagant use of glasses, their luxurious chairs. These things are worth their weight in precious shekels. No true miser would waste their wealth on such frills. Second of all, these guys aren't real. They're fictional characters.
True.
Scrooge McDuck does not exist. I don't care what CNN says, it's all liberal conspiracy bullshit. I mean, look at this article by the Huffington Post. You mean to tell me that this picture isn't photoshopped? Ridiculous. But you know who was real? One Daniel Dancer of London, England. Born in 1716, Daniel's father died at a young age, leaving behind a large agricultural estate for Daniel to oversee. When it was first inherited, the property brought in a few £100s a year, which doesn't sound like much today, but given that a general laborer could be expected to make around £19 per year in 1710, it's safe to say that Dancer could afford to live a fairly lavish lifestyle off his passive income.
Yeah, that's what always gets me when people are like, oh man, back in the day you could have bought a house for like $2,000. Yeah, but you always have to equivalent it to, the time that we're talking about. $2,000, but a laborer made maybe, $100 a year, $50 a year.
Come alone. But Dan was like, all this food and clothing and stuff is alright, but you know what I really like? Owning money. Say, how much does a pound cost? Well, that's a complicated question, Daniel. Can currency really be said to have intrinsic value? Some economists believe that. TLDR, please. They cost a pound. Jesus, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge question. The cost of money, right? What is money really worth? And we've gone through, many different periods just here in the United States where nowadays our money is backed in what's known as the full faith and credit of the United States. So intrinsically, our money, especially paper money, holds no value at all. The actual value of a paper dollar is like 0.000000001 cent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, same thing. Germany should have learned their lesson after World War I.
Oh, yeah, when they started printing money to pay off their debt, yeah. So intrinsically, the money has no value. That is not to say that it never did. Our money used to have value, talking about the United States, but of course this goes for many other cultures, many other time periods, where, you hear, money is worth its weight in gold. Money used to literally be worth its weight in gold, especially when we were on coinage specifically. So you had a $1 gold coin. The gold coin weighed out to $1 worth of gold, or a $20 gold coin. It weighed out to $20 worth of gold. Then even when we transferred to paper currency, we were still on, for example, the gold standard. So you could go to a bank with a $1 bill and get $1 worth of gold in exchange. Yeah. Or later on, silver certificates. Some of them are actually still in you can find them in circulation. especially like the $2 note with Jefferson. A lot of them on the bottom, right below the presidential portrait or the portrait of whoever the founding father is, in the case of Hamilton and Ben Franklin, it would say silver certificate. So you could go and trade in that $2 note for $2 worth of gold or silver. So the money itself didn't have intrinsic value in the paper, but you could get value for it in its weight in gold or silver. Yeah.
Which dollar bill is Hamilton?
Alexander Hamilton is on the $10 bill.
Oh.
Yeah. He's the founder of, he was not a president, but he was the first secretary of the Treasury.
I better start saving. Thus began one of the most intentionally frugal lifestyles history has ever seen. Let me walk you through a few of Dancer's day-to-day habits. First of all, soap, don't even think about it. The closest thing to bathing that Daniel did was during the summer months when, once or twice a week, he'd wade into the nearby pond and scrub his face with a handful of sand. Say what you will, but what he lacked in deodorization, he certainly made up for in exfoliation.
I was about to say, he definitely exfoliated, man. That sand is rough on that skin. I do use the scrubs once in a while, make sure my features stay delicate. Don't be looking at me that way. Don't judge me. I'm not judging. I like a facial peel. I like a facial once in a while. There you go. Good. Take that out of context.
You look good.
Man, I love a good facial. There you go.
You look good though.
There's your out of context quote for this video.
Of London probably reeked to high hell back then, so while Daniel's smell might not have tipped people off to his eccentricity, his clothes almost certainly did. On a good day, he'd be seen in one of his coats, which were homemade patchwork abominations of various garments that Dancer found on the streets and local dust heaps, looking like a walking dementia patient sewing circle. Similarly, all his shoes were either scavenged or Frankensteined out of other pairs of shoes he already owned, with the whole ensemble being barely held together.
What are they called?
Out of patient sewing circle. Dancer found on the streets and local dust heaps, looking like a walking dementia patient sewing circle.
A walking dementia patient sewing circle. Wow.
It does look like that.
That's true.
Similarly, all his shoes were either scavenged or Frankensteined out of other pairs of shoes he already owned, with the whole ensemble being barely held together with haphazardly tied bands made of the hay grown on his estate. In fact, a lot of the time, he ditched normal clothes altogether and just wear the hay. To his credit, in his youth, Daniel was known to purchase a whole 2 shirts per year as his clothing expense.
Wow.
But one day he looked in the mirror and said, "Daniel, you're bleeding funds like a stuck pig. It's time to grow up and get your act together," and cut his budget to only 1 shirt per year. One of the few people that Daniel associated with regular.
Did you see on the mirror he was looking at? His mouth didn't move at all.
Oh, his mouth didn't move? Maybe he's a ventriloquist.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've known so many people like this. It almost seems like the wealthier a person is, the more frugal they are or miserly. I mean, they will spend money on certain things. You know, they'll spend money on, getting a private jet or a house. But then, like, the bare essentials of life, that's when they start being very Scrooge-like. I remember there was this one woman who lived in my grandmother's building. She was filthy rich, but she would walk around the apartment building and ask like a neighbor for sugar and ask another neighbor if she could borrow some bread, like she's going to pay him back, Let me get 3 slices of Wonder Bread. I'll bring you back 5 next week. So she never shopped for food. But everybody thought that, this poor woman, she has no money. So she would get like cheese from one neighbor, ham from another neighbor, bread from another neighbor. Boom, she's got a sandwich. She would borrow some coffee here, sugar there. And that's how she lived. Yeah.
Did she really pay them, though?
No, she didn't pay anyone back.
Exactly what a rich person would do.
Yeah, and then when she passed away, they were moving stuff out of her apartment, and she had like Fabergé eggs and, Tiffany and all this stuff all over her apartment. People were like, what? Like, yeah, she was a millionaire.
Was his sister, whom he lived with. Believe it or not, she shared in a lot of Daniel's tight-fisted habits, and it definitely showed. She was described as, quote, having more the appearance of a walking dunghill than one of the fair sex.
She had the appearance of a walking dunghill than one of the fair sex. The fair sex is just, a polite old English way of saying that, a woman was beautiful. Look at her. She is the fairer sex. But dunghill, I mean, I don't have to explain that one. Pretty sure you can figure out what a dunghill is.
Couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. Dancer prepared all of his food for the upcoming week ahead of time, consisting of only 14 hard dumplings and 3 pounds of beef stretched out over the entire 7-day period. Every day, he'd eat only a single meal that was basically equivalent to 2 wads of dried out dough and 1.5 quarter-pounder patties from McDonald's. He kept this habit up for years without fail, except for one time when he stumbled upon a fully intact, rotting sheep carcass during his daily stroll. He was like, "Good lord, this is just obscene. Who would leave a perfectly good pile of arguably..."
Who would leave all that delicious meat just laying around? So basically, he was doing what a lot of people do now. He was doing OMAD, intermittent fasting. So he was on OMAD, 1 meal a day, which a lot of people actually do now voluntarily. I did it for like 6 months. Lost a ton of weight and actually was much more sharp and focused eating 1 time a day than eating throughout the day. But then my depression got the better of me, and OMAD is pretty much all day, but basically OMAD is it's a high level of intermittent fasting. So a lot of people intermittent fast because, people are like, oh, you don't want to get into starvation mode. You can't starve your body. But if you actually study it, there are a lot of health benefits to having a very specific short eating window rather than just, having breakfast at 7 a.m. and then eating all the way up to 7 or 10 or 8 p.m. Again, I mean, literally, the word breakfast is break fast, right? You're breaking your fast. So actually fasting and having, like, a lot of people, the norm for a lot of people is 18-8. Oh, no, 18-6. So you fast for 18 hours a day, and then you have a 6-hour eating window. So it really helps your body instead of, it's a whole science. I don't want to get into it. But basically, at the end of the day, your body is not digesting food and putting its resources into doing that. So your body can then concentrate on other things like repairing organs, etc. So it's a good thing, but some people take it to a real high level and they do OMAD, which is basically on a high level. What I was doing was fasting 23 hours a day and eating only 1 hour a day and having a big meal, but I mean, still eating healthy. So maybe some baked chicken with some broccoli, but you could have a pretty decent portion. Right? Then maybe throw in, some, I'm a big fan of farmer cheese. I love farmer cheese. So I'd have a serving of farmer cheese, have some peanut butter, have some nuts, and like that would be my dinner. So that's really what he was doing, but he was doing it because he was just a cheap bastard.
Edible meat and organs just sitting around like this. So he dragged the thing home and made him and his sister a nice big pile of spoiled mutton pies, which they subsisted off of for several weeks. That's a real life hack right there. Who needs refrigeration if it's already ran?
Oh, man, they're going to do it. That's the other thing. I was actually talking to somebody the other day about this. I just love that, you never want to say, oh, man, you're eating sheep. So they call it mutton instead.
Yeah.
Mutton.
You're eating mutton.
Like chicken is okay. Yeah, some chicken, some beef. But kind of like beef. Like you don't want to say, I'm going to have a cow burger. I'm going to have a beef burger, right? So there are certain things. So you never want to say, oh, I'm eating sheep. These sheep are so cute. Mutton.
Am I right? Despite Daniel's rabid fear of any unnecessary spending, he did own a dog named Bob that he was quite fond of.
Aww.
At this point, I'm almost certain that Dancer just decided to base his entire life off of linoleum by no effects, which is pretty incredible considering linoleum wasn't even invented for another 100 years. Anyway though, one day, Daniel's neighbor came to complain about how Bob had been harassing his sheep. So Daniel said, "Don't worry boy, I ain't gonna kill you, but we don't want a lawsuit on our hands, do we?" "No, we don't. What would we do if a lawyer came around here, huh?" "That's right, and make his children watch, yeah." So he decided to take the dog to the local farrier, which is basically a blacksmith that specializes in horseshoes and the like. "Hey, could you make my dog, not have teeth anymore?" What kind of business you think I'm running here, boy?" "Come on, man, you file down horses' hooves for a living. Teeth are just tiny mouth hooves. That's close." "Sorry, buddy, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades."
What?
Well, got me there. Say, what's a hand grenade? None of my sources say what happened to the dog after his untimely nubbening, but I do know Dan never got sued, so I guess the operation was a success. Daniel's sister passed away in 1766, leaving him so distraught that he actually went out of his way to buy mourning clothes for her funeral. And by that I mean he bought a pair of secondhand black stockings, and that's it. Still, that's a big deal when it comes to the likes of Dancer.
True.
At this point, the only person close to a friend that Dancer had was a woman known as Lady Tempest. She was so influential over him that she was actually able to convince him to buy, get this, a 1 shilling hat. This was quite an accomplishment, as Daniel's last hat was older than half of you at 14 years old. What? I'm not. You don't. Meow. You.
Oh, he's triggered. He's triggered. That's it.
Triggered!
Of course, the next time Lady Tempest went to hang out with him, he was still wearing his old disgusting hat. When questioned about the one he bought, he goes, "Oh yeah, that frilly old thing. Sold it for a 6p profit. Super easy too. I tell you, forget house flipping. Hat flipping is going to be the cool new thing pretty soon." Lo and behold, 250 years later, he was wrong. Daniel died at the ripe old age of 78, which seems pretty shocking considering the whole not using soap, eating rotten food thing, but I guess his near total isolation from other people made up for that when it came to preventing illness, though he never ended up shelling out.
Yeah, that's interesting. This, I mean, the closest modern, well, I mean, it's not modern, but modern to 1716, of course, was Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, for those who are not familiar, he was portrayed in a Martin Scorsese movie. I think it was called The Aviator, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Howard Hughes was like, if you put Elon Musk and like, what's the name of the guy who owns the Dallas Mavericks? I forget his name. But if you like combine their personalities, Mark Cuban. If you combine Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, you would have, you know, Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was in everything. He was in the movie industry. He financed a lot of big movies back in the day. He even directed a couple. He was, of course, you know, in big business. He was into aviation. I mean, he was into so many things, but he always had, you know, what people would call you know, weird, you know, little, you know, tics and things. So back then it wasn't as, you know, accepted or identifiable as it is, but even today, things like OCD, ADHD, paranoias, and, you know, mental health issues. But he was kind of similar. He was very extravagant, but in his home, he lived almost very, very miserly. Like he wouldn't indulge in things, you know, when he was at home alone, but he also eventually became more and more and more of a recluse. And then we have the famous tall tales of what was he really like, because he eventually disappears from all public life and puts, you know, darkens all of his windows. And I see it. Just give me 1 second. And for decades was a recluse. There was a famous reporter who said that, oh, he got Howard Hughes to talk, and there were all these interviews, and it turned out all to be fake and false. But there were tales of he would have fingernails like this long. His hair was like all grown out. He would pee into bottles and save them. He wouldn't change his clothes for weeks or months at a time. And pretty similar to this, a very reclusive lifestyle. So I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Dancer, you know, may seem strange, but he probably had some sort of, you know, either OCD issues or other mental health problems. Yeah, go ahead, babe. I'm sorry.
So remember the part where he was like, by the way, what's a hand grenade?
Yeah, what's a hand grenade?
Hand grenades were made in the 1900s.
Oh, look at you. Look at the big brain on Jacob.
Think.
That could be. I'm not sure on that one either, when hand grenades came out. I'm sure like 500 people are going to comment in the comment section.
Don't be mad.
Nobody's mad. Can't know everything.
Out any of the massive hoard of wealth that he accumulated over this time, his efforts weren't completely in vain. By the time he passed away, Daniel's estate was now pulling in about £3,000 in yearly net revenue, 10 times the amount it earned when he first inherited it. So, moral of the story, parsimony has its place. While it's good to save money, don't torture yourself just for the sake of a few bucks. Next time your parent or significant other insists on turning down the thermostat or keeping the windows up to save gas, just say, hey, are we human or are we Dancer? But you know what else is more valuable than money?
Knowledge.
That's why you
True.
need to try Skillshare.com. Skillshare is an online...
All right, yeah, check out Skillshare if that's your thing. But another amazing video, man. What do you think?
I thought that was funny and cool.
Yeah, that's why I love videos like these. Because they bring up an interest, right? You actually learn something interesting, and it sparks your curiosity to potentially go out and learn more about it, and it's entertaining at the same time. This is the type of history I love, this presentation.
Yep.
Yeah?
I've been Mr. Krabs, and we'll
You've been
see
Mr. Krabs.
And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much, and as always, gonna thank the Patreons, and we'll see you in the next time. And as always, we're shouting out our Patreons who keep the things running here, starting with the Chancellors, Biker Dude, Wouter, Chris, Jumpin' with E, Phoenix, the Principals, James R, Spacey Doodle, Elena G, Ulrike, Nick, Lauren, Clement, Vijandra, Monica Kadi, Alan, Chad, Alex, Baba Mama, Aaron Shepard, Big J, Jobina, Christopher, Dallas Eager, Freeman, Nathan, Rasmus, a Viking Nerd, and Kevin G. I've been Teacher Eddie, and I'll see you next time.